Ah, beautiful. Where there is a will, there is a way, Ian, and we're going to find a way.
We
So
are.
Facebook is doing weird stuff, so we're going to do a YouTube instead. So
Let's do it.
I am delighted to be here with my good friend and companion in this life's journey, Ian Foster, who I said amazing things about before and just made him completely blush when we tried this. I really admire Ian's ability to not only utilize logic and critical thinking, but to really partner it with compassion. You are the most grounded, down to earth human lawyer that I've ever come across. And lawyer just doesn't feel like, I know it is what you do and part of who you are. It just doesn't feel like the right archetype for you because you're so heart centered and soul driven. And so we've just had an amazing conversation for about half an hour that didn't work for some reason. And we're just going to start unpacking and playing again with why critical thinking really matters and what is critical thinking. And this definition is going to be different to the one you gave me a minute ago. Like
I'm
it's
sure
just
it
it's
is. And
delightful.
I'm just gonna assume that everything's always working out for the best, and that whatever we tried to do before that didn't record properly is not what people were going to hear. And so maybe what we talk about now is what people need to hear. Critical thinking is a whole bunch of things. It is definitely stuff like logic and skepticism and fallacies and all that good stuff, burden of proof. There's all this critical thinking stuff that we usually think about, but it is so much more than that. That stuff is a necessary part of critical thinking, but it's not remotely a sufficient part of it. To me, critical thinking also incorporates compassion for yourself and others, empathy, trying to get in other people's heads and really feel what they feel and try to understand who they are and where they're coming from. And then ultimately, it's all about building stronger relationships so you can make a bigger difference in the world and make choices that are more aligned with your values. Because if you can't use all of those classic tools like logic and skepticism to make better choices that are aligned with your values, then it doesn't matter. Then none of it matters. And your values are whatever you want as values. Amy and I share a lot of values, which is why we get along so well and are friends and are able to collaborate so well in business. But you guys watching may have different values, and that's fine. It's none of my business what values you choose. I just want to empower you to make choices and take actions that are aligned with your values. And that to me is how you reach so much more fulfillment and growth as an individual, happiness in life, and build the better relationships around you.
Love that. I love that so much. It just delights me how much you care and are open to the differentiation of people. So it's not we have to do it this way and my way is best. It's find your way and find what matters to you and yeah, the logic and the skepticism and all of the pieces that you teach in the critical thinking, both the webinar and the course that you've got coming up, are empowerment tools. They're
Yeah.
not they're not designed to force people to think one way. And I think too often logic and critical thinking is looked at as a control mechanism. Whereas when you couple it as you do with the compassion and the empathy and true understanding of people, it really shifts the dynamic.
No, I totally agree. And that's a big problem. I mean, there's a lot of places, a lot of people that will teach you critical thinking, but my big problem with most of the people teaching critical thinking is one, either they focus too much on the hard logic and they ignore the human element and our emotions because we're emotional creatures making emotional decisions. We're not making logical decisions. We want to think we're making logical decisions, but we're just not. Or they have an agenda. Their idea of critical thinking really just means think their way, agree with their position, and all of the teaching is trying to guide you into reaching the same conclusions that they have. And so I really try to teach it from as much as I can an unbiased viewpoint, where my only real goal is empowering you to make your own choices and decide what actions you want to take that are in alignment with your values. And if you don't share my values, that's fine. You don't have to. And I don't have to share yours. We're different people. I just want you to take actions that are in alignment with your values. And I'm not saying I'm completely unbiased. I'm a human being and I look things through my own past and my lenses like everything else. But that's the effort that I make.
I think that that really shines through in that in some of the discussions we had in the group discussions, in that we could all come with our own thoughts and opinions, and that distinguishing between, so there's thoughts and beliefs and values and actual logic, and they're sometimes they overlap, often they're not quite overlapping, and that's okay. And so often one of the key things that I love and really admire about you is your ability to say I don't know. And it's something I struggled with in the first webinar that we did together. I'm like, this dude keeps saying I don't know. Like, he's meant to know. He's the trainer. I'm here for the. And over time, I've really learned to embrace that. In terms of critical thinking, that's our first standpoint. Is actually we don't know, and let's find out together. And I think as coaches, that's a truly empowering place to come from.
It is. And in fact, in the course itself, the entire first week is trying to get you comfortable with saying, I don't know. And not just being comfortable with, I don't know. First, you have to get comfortable. And then we try to get to a point where you feel empowered when you say, I don't know. Because look, the fact is you don't know. I know you want to think you know, and I want to think that I know, but we just don't. And so the foundational part of critical thinking, we talk about, and we learn in the course a lot about what proper skeptical thinking is and how empowering skeptical thinking can be. But the foundation of skepticism is I don't know as your default position in everything. And so I do that in every subject. I do it, like you said, in the subjects I teach. I teach courses on law and taxes. For decades, I've been an attorney. I was a government tax attorney. If anybody should be the expert on taxes, it's me. And yet people come to my tax classes and ask me questions. And I'm like, I don't know, because I don't know all of it. But I can help you figure it out. We can work through it and figure it out because I have the tools to find the knowledge. But I don't know all of it. And some of this, I have to give a lot of credit to the law school I went to. I went to a very heart-centered law school, a very non-traditional law school, where they didn't hammer you with the Socratic method. They didn't try to wash you out. There's an old adage about law school, and there's actually some movies that have used it. I wish I could remember the name, but there's a movie about some Harvard law students where they do it. On the first day of law school, they say, look to your left, look to your right. Of the three of you, only one of you is going to graduate. And the other two are your competition, right? On my first day of law school, they said, look to your left, look to your right. This really happened. Look to your left, look to your right. They said, we expect all three of you to graduate, and we expect the three of you to work together and help each other through this, because it's going to be a hard 3 years and you're going to need each other. And because they did their weeding out in the selection process. And their thing was, if we accepted you, it's because we think you have what it takes and we expect you to tough it out and graduate and help each other through it. And then they also taught, the very first week of law school, they taught us to say, I don't know. Even in our legal practice, as a lawyer, they said your default position has to be, I don't know. Because if you give somebody wrong advice in a legal practice, you can ruin their life. You can ruin their business. You have a tremendous amount of power as somebody's attorney. And you have to respect that power, and you have to, not misuse it. So a lot of credit goes to the way I was taught from the very beginning.
I love that. I got goosebumps as you were telling that story, which is delightful. And I think as coaches, we have that same responsibility where we're working with people's lives. We don't know. Client the other day said to me, what should I do about it? I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, I don't like this. So he's been with me for years. And it's just like, this is you give the answers. I'm like, I'm embracing, I don't know. He's like, where did that come from? And it completely, my credit goes to you. So the credit can ripple back.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I have ideas and I have thoughts and I have models and I have frameworks and I have a bunch of things that I can rely on, including critical thinking and logical and what I know of the human mind and emotions and all of that. But at the end of the day, it's their life. We don't know as coaches what people should be doing. And even as mentors and guides and teachers, to be willing to acknowledge we don't know, let's excuse me, let's find out together is such a powerful, and I do now, like I did not find it comfortable. I did not find it empowering in the beginning. In fact, I found it very uncomfortable. And I'm now at a point, I love it and really embracing it. I think it has definitely changed how I coach and how I communicate with people. And
Yeah.
I think that's really key. And I love that distinction between skepticism and cynicism. And I know you cover that more in the webinar, and the differentiating beliefs from identity, which is what I know most coaches are trying to do with their clients. There's so much gold that you unpack in that webinar. So the webinar is free, and I highly encourage people, there will be a link somewhere. It was above the video on Facebook, and now it will be somewhere else.
Yep.
What else do you think is key for us to add to help people know whether or not attending your webinar is the right place for them?
Well, honestly, the way I teach it, it's a mode of thought that applies to quite literally everything you do in life. Yep. Your relationships with your friends and family, how you run your business, how you deal with your clients, the things you put on your grocery list. I mean, literally everything. It's a single holistic mode of thought. If you want everything to just maybe just be that little bit easier, and look, I can't solve your problems. I don't claim to be able to solve all of your problems. They're, you know, life circumstances are what they are, but things can be a little bit easier if you start looking at them through a different perspective. And if you just want to get a taste of maybe kind of a different way of looking at critical thinking. I mean, I do in the paid course, I do teach the hard logic and the fallacies and how to analyze arguments and evidence, because those are incredibly important components of it. But I really throw in a lot of, I shouldn't even say throw in, to me, even more the focus is compassion and empathy and making values-based decisions that align with who you want to be as a person. To me, the skepticism and the hard logic are just excuses to get to the personal growth and relationship building, quite frankly. Because I don't think those other sort of hard, critical thinking tools, I don't think they mean anything if we're not growing, if we're not happy, if we're not building better relationships, if we're not understanding who we are and making choices about who we want to be and what we want to do in the world. The rest of it doesn't matter without that stuff. So to me, the skepticism and logic and the rest of the hard tools are just excuses to get to the really meaty, juicy stuff. And so if you want to get a taste of what that's like, come to the free webinar. The webinar is not going to have a lot of, hard logic. We're not going to do math problems. The webinar is going to talk about just a handful of basic tools. And I was like, I have to join the paid course, right? I love teaching this webinar. Teaching this webinar is seriously one of my favorite things to do. And I offer it for free because I'm trying to get it out to as many people as I can. If you just want a handful of tools that will vastly improve your decision-making, just if you use these three tools, then come to the free webinar. I mean, we use the term skepticism and cynicism interchangeably, but they are not the same thing at all. And we often say one when we mean the other. And one of them is proper critical thinking that helps with your decisions. And the other one destroys your decision-making completely. But you have to know what the difference is. You have to know what kind of evidence to look at to make your decisions, right? We all think we're making evidence-based decisions. We're not so good at making evidence-based decisions. We turn out to be very bad at it. And we talk about in the webinar how our brains are, evolution hardwired us to not be good critical thinkers, right? Our brains did not evolve to make good decisions and find truth in the world. Our brains evolved to help us live long enough to pass on our DNA. And if finding objective truth and making good decisions helped that, then fine. But often finding objective truth in the world and making good decisions was not helping us pass on our DNA. So we're hardwired from millions of years to make mistakes in our decision making. And that was fine when we lived in the jungle and we were under constant mortal threat. In modern society, and I should say we're lucky that you and I both live in what we would call the first world. We're incredibly privileged, in the situation we're in, because there are people in the world who are under mortal threat, and I don't want to discount that. But for a lot of us, the position we're in where we're not under constant physical threat anymore, those evolutionary tools are not serving us very well. And you can rewire your brain, but it takes a lot of practice. And then part of that rewiring is figuring out how to disconnect our identities, who we are, from the things we believe are true. because who we are is not what we believe, but we incorporate that in, because again, from the way we evolved as tribal societies, our beliefs became identities, and that helped us survive. But it's now that's causing polarization in society, in politics, in religion, in business, even within family groupings and within friendships. This polarization, so much of it goes back to identity statements. I am this and you are that. Therefore, I am the good one and you're the bad one. So that means I'm always right and you're always wrong. And that all sounds silly and stupid, but that is literally how our brains work.
Yeah,
and that's how we have conflict that doesn't need to happen. But you can learn to disconnect who you are from what you believe. And more importantly, this person you care about, you can disconnect who they are from what they believe too, because their beliefs are not them either. And you can get inside their head. So, I mean, to me, it's just, I don't know, it sounds like sort of this crazy woo-woo answer to a logical question, but that's what it's all about.
I think it's such a demonstration of your values, and if people are resonating with that. So like you said, we make our decisions based on our values, based on our emotions. And listening to you, I remember why I was drawn. It's the heart-centeredness. It's the not being just the hard logic, but bringing the hard logic and coupling it with compassion, and your deep sense of wanting to help people communicate better with each other and really help people create change in the world. They're the values that I hear from you, and I know so many people are going to resonate with those values. The webinar is free. To me, it's just a no-brainer to jump on. Like Ian said, maybe the course will be a fit, maybe it won't, but that opening piece of get in and test. Are your values aligned with this? Does this help you create a better version of you and your world and communication styles for your business?
Yeah.
And so it is. I mean, we'll make the decision based on emotion, and we'll logic it. Like whatever logic you're giving yourself as to why you can't, because it's early or the time's up, whatever it is, really you're doing that on emotion. And so, yeah, highly encourage you. Just pause for a second and tap into, well, what does matter to you? And is it connecting with people and communicating in a way where we can bring both the logic and the compassion together? And
right. So, yeah, think about what would you tell your client, right? When you hear your client as a coach or a healer, when you hear a client making things that in your head are you're like, those are just excuses. Those are just unconscious blocks and beliefs that aren't true. You know, your client has an emotional block to doing what they need to do, and they're just coming up with the excuses and the rationale. Think if you were your client listening, what would you tell yourself there?
I love that. And I think as coaches, so often we're so good at helping others. We're not always the best at helping ourselves. And so.
Oh, yeah. And we teach the very issues that we struggle with and need to work on.
Yeah. So I know I've got so much value from even just the pieces you shared on the webinar were life transformational. Understanding that difference between skepticism and criticism was a real game changer for how I use those words, because I'm certain I was using them incorrectly. I know that for myself, everything in my life has changed. So my parenting, my relationship, my coaching, my business, the way I think and approach things has definitely shifted as a result of doing the course, especially just embracing the I don't know. Like that was a massive game changer for me. And I know for some people listening, they're like, I don't want to embrace that. I like knowing. Maybe you do. That's okay.
Of course you like knowing. It feels good, right?
It feels really good.
I like knowing too.
So yeah, I'll make sure the link is available, and I will definitely be on at least one of the webinars, probably 2 or 3, because I am a bit of a junkie and I always get insights when I hang out with you. And
I've got her addicted, so
definitely.
she's making an emotional decision now to yeah.
Absolutely. And I will also be jumping on the course, even if it is ridiculous o'clock in Australia. I've done that for a couple of courses now. It's well worth.
Well, and it's, I've been getting more and more Australians on my courses, and I tell you, those of you in Australia, New Zealand, I've got a number of people in Southeast Asia sign up for their webinars. If I get enough of you folks from those time zones on, we can do calls that work for your time zones too.
Ridiculous o'clock. So yeah, so on a personal level, I highly encourage you, because I would much rather be doing them. Even 5 a.m. is a much better time for me. Daylight
Yep.
would be lovely. Yeah, so yeah, I'll make sure the link is available. Click that link, register for the webinars. If you've got any questions, feel free to reach out to me, reach out to Ian. I'm sure he'd love to answer questions as well. But if you're watching this on my timeline, reaching out to me is really easy. Happy to answer questions, and yeah, highly recommend it. So
Yeah, Amy knows her stuff. She's been through it. I think Amy could teach it as well as I could at this point.
I can teach it as well as you could, and which is why I promote you teaching it, because I'd much rather that you teach it. And I leverage that. I recommend it to my clients. I recommend it to other coaches in the field, just to jump on and check it out. Maybe it's a match for you, maybe it's not. Either way, though, what's an hour of your time to check out and just discover, could it be a match?
Absolutely. No. And I'd love to see you guys there. And again, it's, the paid course is not going to be right for everybody. It's not the right time. It's not the right price. It's, how it goes, right? With the offers and whatnot. But there's no obligation to join the paid course. I really try to, I'm always, my business coaches are always telling me that I put too much free content in my webinars. And I don't care. I refuse to listen to them because I'm on a mission, and part of my mission is putting out that free content. So I try to give you real juicy, like you get juicy stuff in the free webinar, because to me, if I'm not reaching a lot of people and making a difference, then honestly, why am I doing any of this?
I love that about you so much. So yeah, click the link, join the webinar, and we'll connect really soon. You guys are amazing.